We're finally here. After nearly a decade, we've reached the end of Mario Kart 8's lifespan. Now, over the past few months, we've reviewed individual waves of the Booster Course Pass, we've reviewed the Booster Course Pass as a whole, and I've even offered up my own alternative take on the Booster Course Pass, but today, we are going to rank all 96 courses in this game in a single video. Now yes, I did rank all the courses in the game on stream not too long ago, but even in this short amount of time, some of my opinions have changed. Ranking criteria today is going to be pretty simple. Courses will be ranked on how much fun I find them, how enjoyable they are to play on, their aesthetics, and in general, just how well done they were. Something that I won't really be talking about too much is graphics, because I am not usually a graphics guy, unless it's something major, then I'll probably bring it up. And I'm probably not going to mention music too much either. That'll be... honestly, that's its own separate tier list that I'll just show at the end of the video, because I don't want this video to get too long. But now, let's take a look at the tier list we'll be using today. I know this tier list might look a little bit strange. I have a couple extra tiers on here, but that's mostly just because of how good a lot of this game is on average. At the very top, we have the peak tier, and I'm just gonna get it out of the way. This isn't really an actual tier, it's just a pedestal for me to place my top 5, because I think the top 5 in this game deserves to be even higher. The first real tier we're going to be using here is the X tier. This is for the courses that I find either nothing wrong with, or have one minor nitpick of. And yes, this is where the courses in the peak tier would be if I didn't give them their own pedestal. Up next, we have the S tier. Again, incredibly good courses, but I feel like they don't have that extra something that would put them even higher. Next we have the A tier. Delightful. These are the courses that I still really like, but they've got something holding them back. B tier is next. Nice. These are courses that, yeah, I like them, but there's not much else to it. I just think they're neat. Now as for the C tiers, these are the courses that I don't hate, but I don't really like either. They just kind of do the baseline of, yeah, you exist and you're playable. Now we've reached the D tier, which is the first tier that I actually consider to be bad courses. And even then, these are the ones that I wouldn't hate playing on every now and then. It's just that I would rather play anything better. And finally, we have the F tier. Revolted. This is for the courses that I do not want to play ever. Please do not pick these. Oh yeah, there's also the G tier at the very bottom for the one course in this game that I don't think any part of is even remotely enjoyable. If you know what course this is already, good for you. If you don't, you'll find out soon enough. If it isn't already obvious by the fact that my mediocre tier is towards the bottom, I think most of the courses in this game are pretty good. So expect this to be a very top-heavy tier list. I also just want to mention that placements within each tier will not be in order until the end of the video, so stick around for that. But I don't want to ramble on for too long now, so let's jump on over to our first course, Mario Kart Stadium. I'm just going to say this right now, Mario Kart Stadium is easily the best starter course in the series. Not only does it serve as what it's supposed to, you know, an introductory course to the game and all its mechanics, but it's also just an actually kind of fun course to play. It gives you a simple introduction to anti-gravity, a couple basic shortcuts, pretty basic gliding section, but at the end of the day, it's a starter course. It doesn't need to do anything too insane. And while most people, myself included, do consider it to be one, Mario Kart Stadium is actually the only starter course in the series not to have circuit in the name. I think that for being a relatively fun introduction to Mario Kart 8, Mario Kart Stadium easily sits in B tier. Water Park gets too much hate. I don't understand what issues people have with this course, like, oh, it doesn't live up to its theme. Okay, fair enough. But it's not trying to be anything incredibly in-depth. It still uses its aesthetic really well, it just does so in a way to introduce underwater driving and show how it interacts with the new anti-gravity. And in that regard, I think it does it just fine. I feel like people hate on this course for what it isn't, rather than what it is. If this was a later game course, yeah, I could definitely understand being upset that it's this simple, but again, it's just introducing underwater. It does that just fine, still keeping a very fun atmosphere with it, and for that, I think it's pretty good, so it's going to go into B tier. Sweet Sweet Canyon has always been a bit of a favorite course of mine. From the aesthetic, to the layout, to especially the music, this is what I like to see even just from the Mushroom Cup after we've gotten through all the introductory stuff. Heck, I would probably say that with the exception of Toad's Factory and maybe Baby Park, this is probably my favorite Mushroom Cup track in the series. And while the first two courses introduced the basic mechanics of the game in a pretty simple way, Sweet Sweet Canyon still has a couple things to introduce of its own, including the first time a cannon has ever appeared in a Mushroom Cup track, and a pretty basic introduction to split paths. Yeah, it doesn't need to be there, but it's nice to have. It just spices up the middle of the race a little bit. But I think we can all agree, easily the best part of this course is its aesthetic. Like, come on. Maybe I'm just hungry, but everything in this course just looks so good. From the gingerbread spectators at the starting line, gingerbread houses thrown throughout the course, the cannon shooting you onto a giant cake, even the piranha plants in the last couple turns have a little bit of a candy coating to them. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this course is an easy A tier. Thwomp Ruins is a very interesting course. Over the years, my thoughts on this course have changed wildly, from having it all the way up at the top of A tier to the bottom of C tier. As for now, though, I think this course is pretty nice. Yeah, I don't think it's as great as some people do who put it all the way at the top, but I still really like it. This is another example of a very well done Mushroom Cup track, as, again, it's just fun to play on, even though it's still fairly basic. I'd say the most interesting part in this course is that middle area, where you can go either over the glider ramp in later laps, through the water, risk going under the thwomps, or just go on the wall around them. And this is another course that uses its theme really well. Obviously, there are gonna be a lot of thwomps everywhere, but there's also just a lot of thwomp icons all over the place, including the entrance to the tunnel, a couple of thwomps just off to the side at the end of the race, and everything looks ruined as it should. I've struggled for a little while on where I want to actually put this course, but I think for now, I'm gonna leave it in B tier. We'll see how I'm feeling later though. It might move up to a low A. Let's be honest, what is there really to say about Wii U Mario Circuit? It's literally just Figure 8 Circuit, but a little bit more interesting. You've got a couple Goombas thrown in there, a couple Piranha Plants, and I will admit, the fact that they decided to make this game's Mario Circuit a Mobius strip is pretty cool, but at the same time, it's still just a Figure 8 with not too much going on. I think the glider ramp at the end kind of exemplifies that. They were like, okay, we need something interesting to put at the end here. Just throw a glider ramp in there, sure. Which, funny enough, is something that I've seen a lot of people do when making custom tracks of Figure 8 Circuit for Mario Kart 8, because they just have nothing else to put there. In my opinion, the only real notable things about this course is that it was the first course we ever saw in Mario Kart 8, and that it got to be a stage in Smash. But ironically enough, so did Figure 8 Circuit, and that one's actually better in Smash. This is still just kind of whatever there. And with that, I think Wii U Mario Circuit is going to be our first C tier of the day. Toad Harbor is a very fun course, but we all know the real reason you pick it is just for the vibes. You just have this wonderful little coastal town you drive through. There's a couple obstacles here and there with the trams, but honestly, they're not too much in the way. They just provide a nice little obstacle on an otherwise incredibly wide road. They also decided to just throw a few alternate paths here and there within this course. Like we have at the beginning, you can jump across the boats, you can go under the tents, over them, or just to the side of them. And there's that other random turn at the end that I don't think I've ever really seen a reason to take besides just seeing what's over there, but it's still there. And, you know, we love going around the finish line instead of through it. Really though, this is a course that is heavily carried just by the vibes for me. So much so that I think it's going to land itself towards the lower end of A tier. Twisted Mansion, in my brain, is a lot like Water Park. A course that I really enjoy, actually, but I see a lot of people hate on it, and I don't really get why. I think this course has a perfect grasp on what it wants to do, and it does it well. Yeah, sure, it's just the token spooky course of the game, but it uses its setting pretty well. Granted, yeah, we've already had a spooky mansion course back in DS, which is better than this, but this is also going for something completely different, with more of a focus on split paths here, as from the beginning we have going on the walls around the table, and then at the end we have two different glider sections leading you to two different paths at the other half of the mansion. It's also neat to see some unique elements brought into a course like this, as typically they just kind of throw a bunch of booze around there and call it a day, but no, here we've got the funny smashing statues at the end. And yeah, this course didn't really need an underwater section, but it's also not as bad as people say it is. Plus it starts off with a Mario Galaxy reference, which is always appreciated. Realistically, I don't think I can put this course any higher than B tier, so that's where it's gonna go. Shy Guy Falls. This is a very fun course, and I'm just gonna say, this probably has my favorite usage of anti-gravity in the entire game. How can you not love driving up and down on a waterfall? This course also gives us everyone's favorite little guys from Mario Kart, the Mining Shy Guys. Yeah, they were just background details, they didn't need to be added to the music. But they still gave them the part anyways, and honestly, I love them for that. But beyond that, I don't really have too much else to say about this course. It's a lot of fun to play on, uses its theme really great, has one of, if not my favorite anti-gravity section in the entire game, and I just think it's neat, so this course is going to land itself solidly in the A tier. Now here is a great course, Sunshine Airport. Admittedly, its layout is fairly basic for a Star Cup track, but it more than makes up for that with its aesthetic. Give me more Mario Kart tracks based around places cars shouldn't be. Easily this course's best aspect, though, is the attention to detail when it comes to referencing other courses. Either through signs on the wall, the different flight terminals, or just the fact that you can see N64 Koopa Troopa Beach in the background. Very few tracks in the series, I feel, reference others as much as this one. One thing I will say, though, is we have just gone from one of my favorite uses of anti-gravity to one of my least favorite. This course really didn't need an anti-gravity section where it had it, but I suppose it would have felt weird to leave one course without the new gimmick. After all, we saw what happened with that in Mario Kart 7. So you know how I just said the best part of the course is the references to other courses? I lied. The real best part of this course is the fact that if you are near any of the moving planes, practically all of the other game audio will be slightly muted. With all that said though, I think Sunshine Airport has what it takes to be the first S tier of the day. Alright, Dolphin Shoals. It is about time we get an actually good water course. Like, yeah, the ones we've gotten up until this point haven't been terrible, but finally we see one that shows, yeah, this is a cool mechanic. It's also the first course in the series to actually start underwater. And this just uses the theme so well. Whether it's the dolphin rings you jump through at the beginning, the entire pipe section, bouncing around on the eel towards the end, this course shows us underwater driving is a good mechanic. They just needed to find the right theme for it. Now, I know earlier I said I wasn't going to mention music too much, because that's going to be its own tier list at the end, but you can't talk about Dolphin Shoals without talking about just how fantastic the music is. You pop out of the water and it is just perfect. I think Dolphin Shoals is going to be another easy S tier course. When I first played Music Park back in Mario Kart 7, I thought, wow, that is how you do a music-themed course. I don't think they'll ever top this. And then Mario Kart 8 comes out with Electrodome and immediately tops it. They saw the theme worked and decided, alright, how can we improve on it this time? Let's make it a giant club instead, and I think it works pretty well. We've got all the spectators just vibing, hanging out. Some more pretty great anti-gravity usage. There's that entire section where, depending on how fast you're going, the notes change. And let's not forget about the piano section right before the glider. It's also really neat how, when it comes to the pink and green paths at the end, not only does the music on them change, but the instrumentation is slightly different based on which path you're on. Overall, I think we can all pretty much agree Electrodome is a great course, so it is going to go right into S tier. Mount Wario is a truly phenomenal course. It's a section track and a Wario track, two categories that there are no bad courses in, if you ignore the one bad Wario track that kinda got retconned. Nintendo did their best to make each section feel distinct from each other, whether it was from visuals, gameplay, or music. Section 1, fairly standard, you're just going down the mountain across some icy roads. Section 2, a little bit of a glider section in the cave, followed by driving across the dam, which is a really cool visual. Section 3, just going through the forest, dodging some trees, which I know some people don't like, but we call that a little bit of a skill issue here. And Section 4, going straight snowboarding downhill, which is my personal favorite section. And yet, despite how different each section is, both gameplay and music-wise, the transitions between them are seamless. Now, being a section track, yeah, the layout is a bit linear, but that doesn't hold this course back at all. I think it actually plays into its strengths, because again, it allows each section to be completely distinct from the others. In my opinion, whether you're talking about the gameplay, the music, the visuals, the aesthetic, no matter what it is with Mount Wario, this course is perfect, and I have no issues placing it as the best course in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Cloudtop Cruise asks the question of, what if we took the aesthetics of Airship Fortress and Sky Garden and put them together in one course? The answer? You get a really good course. Now, of course, Cloudtop Cruise is more than that. Those are just the first two things that I think of when I think of this course, which are both good courses in their own right, so I think comparing Cloudtop Cruise to those two is a pretty good compliment. I'd probably say the best part about this course is the Thunderclouds section. Does it need to be anti-gravity? No, not really, but that doesn't hurt the course in any way. What helps it, though, is the fact that during the Thundercloud, the music changes to an electric guitar, which I think just helps amp up the intensity of that section a bit more. And because I mentioned the music, yeah, I have to say it, we love Gusty Garden Galaxy theme, don't we? For real though, I think it was a pretty good way of fitting in a little Galaxy reference here. The theme fits this course well enough. I also think it's kinda cool that at the end of the Thundercloud section, when you're gliding back to the Vine Road that the race started on, you can see it's actually coming out of a giant question mark block. It's aesthetic choices like that that really make me like a course. I think, given all that I've said about Cloudtop Cruise here, this is an easy S tier course. Bone Dry Dunes. It's about time Dry Bowser got his own course. He's been part of the series for a little while now, even if he wasn't initially playable in Mario Kart 8, but we're not going to talk about that. I think this course has a kind of neat aesthetic, but that's kind of it. It's cool that we have the giant dry Bowser skull at the glide section. All the piranha plants are instead bone piranha plants. There's a couple dry bones here and there, but gameplay-wise, it's really just your generic desert track. I suppose the upper route in the cave section is kind of neat, as it does give you an extra item that you otherwise wouldn't be getting, but even then, it's just... I don't know. Playing on this course, it feels like it doesn't do its aesthetic justice. Because the theming is really cool. And it's really that theming that makes me say that this is probably the best desert course in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That being said, it's still C tier. Although I do gotta ask. In the European English version of the game, you know, some courses have different names. It's been like that since Mario Kart Wii. For this course, why did they remove the hyphen? That just felt wholly unnecessary. Wii U Bowser's Castle is probably the best 3D Bowser's Castle in the series. Maybe with the exception of DS. This course has basically everything you'd want from a Bowser's Castle track. Lava all over the place, tons of Bowser iconography. They threw some rolling rocks in there for good measure. It probably has my favorite usage of a giant Bowser statue, and it's moderately difficult, which is fair considering it's the penultimate course of the Nitros in this game. There is one thing that it's missing, though. Believe it or not, this is the only Bowser's Castle course in the series to not contain any thwomps. We don't count the SNES remakes in Super Circuit, those aren't real. At the same time, though, I don't think it really needs any thwomps. There's already a lot of obstacles here with the falling rocks, the fire bars, the wrecking ball, the lasers, the giant Bowser statue. Adding in some thwomps may have just made the course feel overcrowded, so I'm fine with their exclusion here. I think, for being a really good Bowser's Castle and a pretty good penultimate Nitro, Wii U Bowser's Castle is going to go straight into the A tier. And now we have reached the final original Wii U Nitro track. Of course, it's Rainbow Road. And this one is good. Is it a little underwhelming compared to the last two? Yeah, a little bit, but how do you follow up 3DS and Wii Rainbow Road? They should have gone all out with the anti-gravity, that's all I'm saying. The way they used it works, but for Rainbow Road, in the game that's gimmick is anti-gravity, they could have done so much more with that mechanic here. I know there's some people out there who say, oh, it can't be a Rainbow Road. Half of it is a space station. And I don't know. I just think that it blends those two aesthetics together in a way that works pretty well. And, you know, it's also just fun to play on, and as far as Rainbow Roads go, it's decently difficult. Those first two turns are definitely kinda tricky, at the very least in 200cc. But it's also a lot of fun at the end, just hopping back and forth between the two paths as little shortcuts. I don't know. The more I think about this course, the more it grows on me. There are definitely points in the past where I would have put this course at a C tier. Now, though, I'm feeling low B. Alright, starting off our retro selection is Moo Moo Meadows. I just like this course. I don't have a ton to say about it. Realistically, there isn't a ton to say about it. It's pretty basic, but I don't know. I just like it. The layout itself is still fairly basic, considering this was the second course in Mario Kart Wii's Mushroom Cup, but they gave it a nice change with the new glider ramp, and I don't know, I think the Monty Moles still make for pretty good obstacles. I feel like this course also kind of worked as a battle course back in the Wii U mode. At least it, you know, worked better than some others, but that's neither here nor there. The course is also absolutely gorgeous, by the way. Like, I don't know who decided Moo Moo Meadows needs to look this stunning, but bravo to you. I also just want to add in that the new music we got here is fantastic. Heck, I almost considered picking the violin up again just so I could learn this song. Sure, Moo Moo Meadows may not do a lot, but what it does do, I think it does pretty great. So, for that, it's gonna go to a low B tier. Why was Mario Circuit the only GBA track in the base game Wii U? I mean, I get it, there's only 16 retro slots and 7 games now to choose from, but Super Circuit only got one course in Mario Kart 7 as well. Did they really need to only give it one here? At least it's not a terrible option. The anti-gravity section they threw in there definitely feels forced, but I'll allow it because A, it's funny, and B, they snuck in a fun little reference with the Ultra Hands. Beyond that though, it's GBA Mario Circuit. Just the way you remember it, pretty much. I do think it's neat though that they decided, instead of using the original theme to remix, they went with the beta version of the theme. And yeah, they remixed it pretty well. I don't know, it's just another Mario Circuit. Throw it in C tier and let's be done with it. Cheep Cheep Beach. Honestly, this course wasn't that much of a surprise. It was technically the first course in the series to have underwater driving, so it only makes sense to bring it back in a game that, you know, actually has that mechanic now. Although I'm not sure why they didn't do the same for DS Rainbow Road with anti-gravity, but we'll get to that later. This course did get a couple of nice upgrades, like the big jump being turned into a glider section, and all of the underwater being drivable now instead of only some of it. Even if, you know, some of the previously deeper, undrivable sections of the underwater are off-road now, which, again, is a change that makes sense. At the same time, though, I don't know, I feel like the one thing that made it stand out in DS is the fact that you could drive underwater. And now that's just a base mechanic, so I don't know, as nice as this course is, it just doesn't really feel like it stands out that much anymore. You know, it's got a nice aesthetic, a okay layout, but it's also just kind of forgettable, so for that, I think I can only put it in C tier. Figure 8 circuit with cars, I mean Toad's Turnpike, is not a very good course. Granted, it has gotten some nice upgrades from the original, even if they aren't, you know, super necessary. I think the gliding car is kind of nice just to throw in there, and the wall driving, I guess, just makes sense as a slower alternative, but it's safer as well. And, you know, if you don't want to interact with either of these new additions, you don't have to. You can just play Toad's Turnpike just like how it used to be. A much more positive change this course got, though, is just the aesthetic. The original was just kind of a bland, generic sunset, nothing else really happening in the background, but now you've got a whole city in the background, a little bit of woods you can see on that final turn. Clear improvement aesthetically here. The one thing that I can't forgive with this course, though, who in their right mind decided, yeah, let's make this a battle course in the Wii U battle mode? Genuinely one of the most baffling decisions Nintendo has ever made, if you ask me. I don't know. Toad's Turnpike, for me, belongs in a group that I like to call courses that are definitive improvements over the original, but are still not good. As such, yeah, this is gonna be our first D tier of the video. Dry Desert is boring. This course has basically nothing going for it, besides some admittedly kind of neat shortcuts. It's just got that generic desert theme of sand. You can definitely tell this is from an era where desert courses weren't really a strong suit. Honestly, they still aren't a strong suit, but at least this one does mix it up in this version with the Oasis section. I know some people don't like it because, oh, why is there water? It's called Dry Desert. But I don't know. I think the Oasis does some pretty decent work at making it a little bit more interesting. Beyond that, there's not really a ton else to say about this course. Yeah, it's a little bit sad that the tornado was gone and they had to sacrifice the Sarlacc pit, but I don't know, I just don't care for this course. To me, this is another definitive upgrade, but still bad. Throw it in D tier. Donut Plains 3. The only thing of Super Mario Kart that base Wii U got to see. But I'm a little bit more okay with that, because this course is one of the few Super Mario Kart courses that I would actually call kind of good. That mainly just comes down to, I thought the section with the bridge where you needed to jump over it or fall in was kind of neat by Super Mario Kart standards. Here in 8 Deluxe, they actually just got rid of that. The bridge just collapses and there's a little bit of an underwater section now, which makes sense. I actually like that they made that whole little bit of underwater just kind of its own shortcut. I thought that was a nice addition to this course. I actually think the couple of underwater shortcuts they added kind of make up for the fact that the course is basically entirely flat otherwise. But I don't know, this is another course there's not really a ton to say about. And while, yes, in my opinion, it is the probably third best course in Super Mario Kart, in a game like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe where there are so many other better courses, the best I can do is C tier. Royal Raceway, like Donut Plains 3 before it, is one of the few courses from Mario Kart 64 that I would actually consider to be pretty good. Although, unlike Donut Plains 3, Royal Raceway I actually would maybe even go so far as to say is the best course from Mario Kart 64. And here in 8 Deluxe, yeah, I think it got some really nice changes. Minus the removal of driving up to the castle, but that's an unfortunate loss that I think the track makes up for in other ways. Obviously, the big jump is a glider now. That's just kind of a given with any big jump being brought into a game after Mario Kart 7. It just makes sense. I don't really have any feelings one way or the other on that. I think, yeah, this is just how the thing is now. May as well just accept it. But I do like all the hot air balloons that were added around, instead of it just being a big jump into a basically empty canyon. I actually think, in general, aesthetically, this course has a pretty nice upgrade. Yeah, it still has all the generic circuit mumbo-jumbo, because yes, this is a circuit track. But it's Peach Circuit, so, you know, all of the circuit stuff is pink instead of the usual red, which, I don't know, I think it looks nice. It just helps things stand out a little bit more compared to, you know, all the other circuits in the game. And you can never go wrong with cherry blossom trees. Although again, in my opinion, even if it is probably the best course from Mario Kart 64, there are so many much better courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The best I can give it here, it would be a B tier. DK Jungle. Feels weird seeing a Special Cup track in the Banana Cup, but I suppose Donut Plains 3 is one of those as well. And realistically, I don't know, DK Jungle always felt too simple for the Special Cup for me anyways, so I'm fine with it being here. Honestly, they barely even changed this course from Mario Kart 7. The only thing they really did was, alright, we're gonna turn the temple section into anti-gravity, which I don't know why they did that. It didn't need to be anti-gravity, but not the first time they'll be just throwing anti-gravity into a 3DS course randomly for no reason. But besides the anti-gravity, this is still the exact same course. The shortcut at the end is pretty nice, the glider cut in the jungle is nice, the music is still banging, that also barely changed at all. Yeah, still a good course, and technically, if you want to think about it like that, you could consider it the first true crossover course, but that's up to interpretation. To be honest, these last three courses have all basically been, yeah, it's a bit better than the original, but comparatively it's worse. DK Jungle is also going to go to B tier. DS Wario Stadium is finally going to free us from the sea of just okay tracks that we've been having for the past two cups. In addition to this being the first good retro track we've seen in a little while. I think this is the first retro track that actually has a good, kind of natural feeling usage of anti-gravity. They didn't just slap it on there like they did with DK Jungle. They did do that with an underwater section though. I truly don't know why this course has one of those. It's not terrible, but it's unnecessary. They also gave this course a banger new theme, which, yeah, I'm still upset that it's the only piece of shared music in the game between two courses, but at least it's a good theme that's being shared. Honestly, DS Wario Stadium just feels so right in this game. Like, it was already a very good course in the DS, and yeah, it's even better here. DS Wario Stadium, you get an A tier from me. GameCube Sherbert Land, the albeit slightly better course with this name. I don't really like playing on this course. Aesthetically, this course is great. I think that's true of most ice tracks, honestly, but also true for a lot of ice tracks is that gameplay, it's just not as good. I will say, I do like the new underwater sections that were added. They do spice up the gameplay a little bit, even if the second one is basically copy-pasted from Rosalina's Ice World. It works fine enough here, too. Also, fun fact, of the 32 courses that Mario Kart 8 launched with on the Wii U, this was the only one never to be shown in any trailers pre-release. Which is a little bit interesting, I guess. I just want to know who decided, yeah, we're going to bring back 2 GameCube courses for Mario Kart 8, and we're only going to bring back the worst 2. Granted, yeah, Dry Desert and Sherbert Land did both get some pretty nice improvements, but like Dry Desert, Sherbert Land is still a D tier course. Up next, we have Music Park. I'm not entirely sure why this course is here, considering, you know, we just have better Music Park with Electrodome, but I'm not complaining. This course is still really good. Like DK Jungle, there were barely any changes here. Honestly, gameplay-wise, I can't really think of a single change that it got. Visually, though, of course, it got a massive glow-up. And even with a name like Music Park, I actually think that making the base music for the course fairly simple works well because it interacts well with all of the different instruments you go over. Something I will give this course, though, it is the one course in the series where I will say, okay, the European English name is kind of good. All the other ones suck, but I'll give you Melody Motorway. That one's kind of good. Overall, though, fun course, fun layout, great theming, pretty cool gimmick. Music Park's gonna sit right in the middle of A tier. Yoshi Valley, another actually good N64 course. They seem to be bringing back some good ones and some bad ones, which, you know what, fair enough. I'm not complaining to see the second best course from that game brought back. And they didn't change too much with it. Yeah, there's a couple changes here and there which are nice, but easily the best change this course got, it actually functions properly now. Yoshi Valley, in my opinion, is the perfect example on how to take a course, give it a split path focus, and do it correctly. The number one priority there should be that each path feels unique, and Yoshi Valley does that perfectly. Yes, there is one path that is objectively better than the others, but the gimmick still works. There are some other courses in this game that we will get to later that try to pull off a similar split path focus, but do it poorly because the paths don't make a difference in how you play. Yoshi Valley, they do, and that's what makes this course great. It's also nice to see a course that only got things added to it, and all of those additions are actually kinda good. The previously longest path is now a cannon. It's still the longest path, but I don't mind that they made it a cannon, especially considering you get an extra item for going that way now. And there's some Goombas and swoops along the path as well, which is just nice to break up the monotony, because my one issue with the original version of this track is that there was no obstacles besides the giant egg. This was also probably the one course in the Wii U battle mode that actually made sense as a battle map, just because of the split paths. Although I do kind of wish they just fenced it only to that section, instead of it being the entire course, but oh well. For being the second best course for Mario Kart 64, given some fairly minor improvements, Yoshi Valley's gonna sit in A tier. Tick-tock clock. Man, I still want to know who decided, yeah, you know that one Mario 64 level? Let's make a Mario Kart track out of it, and have it be one of the best courses in DS. And here in 8, it's gotten so much better. The aesthetics alone have just shot through the roof. Gone is the kind of bland background because it was stuck on the DS. Now, it is beautiful. You can actually see all of the inner mechanisms of the clock, whether or not they're part of the course. This also is probably the best starting line in the entire game. The gameplay changes here are also really nice. The section with the spinning gears has been given the music park treatment of, alright, you can choose. Do you want to just drive over it, or do you want to take a glide ramp? I think that works well for that section. I know some people weren't the biggest fans of the clock hands being changed from obstacles to shortcuts, but I don't know, I think they're pretty neat, especially the fact that with the main clock at the beginning of the race, if you go through the direct center of it, you get an extra item. This is an overall phenomenal course, given only upgrades in this version. I think Tick-Tock Clock is going to be the first member of the X tier. Alright, I want to know who was in charge of picking the Mario Kart 7 courses for Mario Kart 8. Because they have only picked bangers. DK Jungle, Music Park, Piranha Plant Slide. All three great courses, the latter two of which both in my top 5. The first two didn't really get any changes, but they also didn't really need them. Piranha Plant Slide didn't really need changes either, but the ones it got were mostly pretty good. The expanded underwater section feels great to play on, and it just looks phenomenal as well. I feel like it just adds a lot to the atmosphere of the course. But unfortunately, there is one big complaint I have here. Why are the Goombas no longer blue? This entire level was supposed to be a reference to 1-2, and yet, they removed the blue Goombas. Beyond that, though, I don't have any complaints. This course is great. I do think it's a little bit dumb that you can now only glide over the wall in 200cc, but I only play 200cc anyways, so it doesn't really matter that much to me. And beyond that, the course still feels absolutely great to play on. Slight gameplay improvements, and minus the blue Goombas, I think the aesthetic was improved as well. Piranha Plant Slide for me is going to just sit in low X tier. Would be a bit higher if we still had those blue Goombas, though. Who let Grumble Volcano in? We had a really good thing going with this Lightning Cup. Why is the worst course in Mario Kart Wii here? Maybe if it gets some changes, it can be better? No, it didn't get any changes. The only change this course got was a single glider ramp that ultimately amounts to nothing. I don't know what they were thinking here. Although I will say, I think the idea of Grumble Volcano is kind of cool. You know, the course crumbling over time, getting smaller each lap. That sounds like a really cool concept. It's just that the way they did it here, the only parts that crumble off are the far sides of the road. There's nothing on the, I guess, the main part that you're driving on. Nothing in the center crumbles away. So realistically, you're not changing too much in how you're playing from lap to lap, which is what something like this should be aiming to have you do. The theming also just feels a little bit bland here. It's just generic volcano track. It's not bad, and, you know, this was part of the base game Wii U, so visually it looks great, but I don't know, it's just a basic volcano course, really. I don't know. Grumble Volcano has a cool concept executed very poorly. Pretty generic theming, nothing really too stand out about it. And honestly, it's just not fun to play on. This, right here, this is our first F tier. And the original 32 tracks come to a close with N64 Rainbow Road. I gotta say, initially I was a little bit skeptical, considering they put the worst Wii track and the worst N64 track in the same cup back to back. Thankfully though, N64 Rainbow Road actually got some changes. And not just, you know, a little bit here and there. No, this course is actually phenomenal now. No longer is this course just a 6-minute endurance test that you can't fall off and there's barely any obstacles. Most of the railings have been removed. We've got more chain chomps now, and the course is only 1 lap, which, to be honest, that's my only complaint. As ironic as it seems, the course, infamous for being just a 6-minute endurance test, now it feels too short. In my opinion, the only kind of good parts of the original version of this track were the music and the aesthetic. And it's safe to say, Mario Kart 8 dialed both of those up to 11. Visually, yeah, this course is stunning. The road tiles look great. I like that it's one of basically the only Rainbow Roads in the series not to be in space, with it instead taking place over a big city. And musically, come on. Do I really need to say it? I also think the fact that this course takes place now in the middle of a fireworks show just adds to the feeling of, yeah, this is the last course in the game. Remember when this was the last course in the game? Now it's not even the halfway point. But yeah, N64 Rainbow Road, in my opinion, is easily the most improved course in the series, going from the worst course in Mario Kart 64 to peak in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Did you know Yoshi's Circuit is shaped like a Yoshi? Like the video if you agree. Okay, but actually, Yoshi Circuit is going to start off the Wii U DLC, and yeah, it's a pretty good course. I'm not sure why they decided to start the DLC with a circuit track, but it's better than the last time we saw this course, where they made it the final course in the game. And Yoshi Circuit being here marks the first time a course has appeared as a retro more than once. Again, the SNES remakes and Super Circuit aren't real. It's also just nice to see this course again, because this is my favorite circuit track in the series, and in my opinion, Double Dash easily has the best circuit theme, so you know Mario Kart 8 was gonna do wonders with it. Yeah, there are a couple of things missing, like they didn't add back that one tunnel shortcut, but overall this course is still really good. Easily the best circuit in the game. Not a high bar, but still. And yes, I might be slightly biased towards this course because Yoshi is my favorite Mario character. But I don't care. This is my ranking. And again, this is just a very well-designed course. The waterfall shortcut is great. The section with the piranha plants is actually pretty nice this time. Granted, it wasn't bad before, but the changes they made here are a lot better. You can cut behind them now. And yeah, I don't know. Not too much else to say about it. I just think they gave this course a really nice remake. This is going to go into A tier. Excite Bike Arena is another course that I feel like I see way too much hate for. And I don't get it. It's fun, it's the first crossover course in the series, and it does a pretty good job at that. What is there to hate? Like, okay, maybe the layout is a bit too simple, but I don't know. I still find this course fun regardless. I love how every time you play on it, everything is different, unless you're doing time trials, but we're not talking about that. The fact that every time you play this course, you're going to have a different experience, I feel like just makes it so much more fun. It almost makes up for the, fairly basic, just an oval layout. Another thing that helps offset that? The music. I actually really like that this is the only course in the game that they didn't go all big band for with the music. They decided, alright, nope, we're keeping it just like the original. And for that, props to them. I think it works great, and it helps the track stand out even more. I don't know. I never got the hate for this course. I just think it's fun. Excite Bike Arena for me gets low B tier. Dragon Driftway exists. I don't know. I don't feel too much from this course. I do always appreciate a good Mario Galaxy reference here and there, but I feel like beyond that, this course doesn't have that much going for it. Admittedly, some great use of anti-gravity. Like, not my favorite, but, you know, it's up there in terms of track design. The layout is, you know, it's alright. I think the fact that it's all anti-gravity definitely makes the course more interesting, even if the minimap is a little bit phallic. But, I don't know. The aesthetic, it's neat. Doesn't do too much for me. I like that this course got its own remix of a battle course, but it's not a very good battle course. I don't know. Dragon Driftway for me, I realistically can't see myself putting it any higher or lower than B tier, so that's where it's gonna go. We've now reached Music Park's evil twin, Mute City. Now, this course, I think you all already know where this course is going. They went all out with the F-Zero courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They thought, okay, F-Zero course, this needs to be all about speed and anti-gravity. And yeah, they succeeded at both. The whole course is anti-gravity, and there's boost panels like every 5 feet. It is great. The unique method of getting coins is also super neat because, you know, besides the other F-Zero course, this is the only course in the game to not have any coins on it. Instead, you just gotta go through the pit areas. It's also nice to see that even if he wasn't playable for whatever reason, we at least get a cameo from the captain on some screens. Seriously though, why was Captain Falcon not playable? We have 2 F-Zero courses and the Blue Falcon. Did we really need Cat Peach or Tanuki Mario? And I think one of the other best parts about this course is the shortcut at the end. Especially in 200cc, where you don't even need a mushroom to do it, you can just go. But I think Mute City, for me, just barely misses out on being peak, with it instead sitting at the very top of X tier. Wario's Gold Mine. Great to see one of the actually really good Wii courses return as a retro here. No offense, Moo Moo Meadows. But I think this course got some pretty nice upgrades. I think the anti-gravity section, while yeah, some people aren't a huge fan of the minecarts no longer being hazardous, I think that with the way that the track plays now, them being non-hazardous just kind of makes sense, with that whole section being anti-gravity. Now you're encouraged to run into them. The one kind of complaint I have with this version of the course is that the half-pipes from the original are gone. But that's more so just a product of Mario Kart 8 not having half-pipes until Wave 3 of the Booster Course Pass. Yeah, I do kind of wish they would have added them back in, but at the same time, I definitely see why they didn't, because there isn't really any reason to. On the other hand, probably my favorite change this course got is the addition of the Mining Shy Guys to the music. Yeah, I wish they lasted the entire underground and not just the little entrance tunnel, but oh well. I like that Nintendo just sees these guys and they're like, alright, yeah, let's throw them in a couple more courses. Wario's Gold Mine is a pretty good course, though. I like it a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't have any complaints with it besides the, you know, not adding the half-pipes back thing, but that wasn't going to happen anyways. I think this course is going to land solidly in the A tier. SNES Rainbow Road should not be in this game. Now, that's not to say it's a bad course or it's a waste of space. There are some courses like that in this game. This is not one of them. I more so mean that Of all the courses to use as a repeat retro, why this one that was just in Mario Kart 7 3 years prior? Yoshi Circuit, Baby Park, those are fine. DS was ages ago, but we just got this in the last game. It's still good though. This is easily the best version of the course. Now this was already the clear best course in Super Mario Kart, and when it returned in 7, it got some pretty nice gameplay changes. They didn't do much to it gameplay-wise here. All they did was just tone up the visuals, and yeah, this wasn't part of the Booster Course Pass, so it looks phenomenal. While again, I don't think SNES Rainbow Road should have been in the game, given its placement in the middle of a cup despite being a Rainbow Road, I think this is the only one that could have worked with. There's no way any other Rainbow Road would have worked as the second course in a cup. I'll be putting this course in mid-B tier, and if I had to choose a course to replace it, I would have gone with DS Rainbow Road. Yeah, it doesn't make sense in the middle of a cup, but first course in the series with anti-gravity really should have been in Mario Kart 8. So remember how earlier I mentioned Yoshi Valley is a perfect example of how you should create a track if you want to use alternate paths as a gimmick? Ice Ice Outpost is an example of what not to do. Granted, yeah, it makes for a cool visual that half the course is green, the other half is yellow, but the paths don't change how you actually play the course. They still play practically the exact same. The course still plays alright. It's got a couple neat shortcuts here and there, but that's kind of it. And yeah, while those shortcuts are fun, shortcuts can't carry an entire track. They bump it up a little bit, but if that's all you've got going for you as a course, I don't know. You gotta do something a little bit more than just have some cool shortcuts. I guess the music is also pretty nice, but we're just talking about the course here. And in that regard, mediocre to play on, poor execution of split path gimmick, admittedly pretty good shortcuts, but I don't know. For me, this is a C tier course. I think it's only fair to start this segment off by saying I have only ever played 2 Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. That being said, I think Hyrule Circuit is a great course, both as a crossover, as a circuit, and just in general. I know there are some big Zelda fans out there that wish they did more with this course, and yeah, while I do agree, I also kind of like that they just kept it to a sort of generic Hyrule. I actually kind of like that with this course, instead of going for a very large-scale reference, they do a lot of smaller-scale things. Yes, they have the standard crossover course of coins changing, in this case into rupees, but we also have the swoops and piranha plants being changed to Keese and Deku Babas. We have the item boxes with a unique sound effect, something that I think only one other crossover course does, and Waluigi Pinball. And we also have, in my opinion, the coolest shortcut in the series, the Master Sword shortcut. And just because this is a crossover course, I feel like I have to mention it. The music here is just great. They give us a phenomenal Zelda medley, which not only just the main theme, but they throw in some Hyrule Field and some of Zelda's Lullaby in there, and yeah, I think it works great, especially for this course with how they interpreted it. I would probably say Hyrule Circuit is my second favorite circuit track in the entire series, although, admittedly, probably my second least favorite crossover track, but with how well done this one is, that's more so just a testament to how good all the other ones are. This is going to be, honestly, a tough decision between high B and low A tier. We'll see how I'm feeling about that later, but like Thwomp Ruins earlier, we're just going to place this in high B for now. Oh, Baby Park. This course right here, this is chaos in its purest form, and I love it. Nice to see they bring back the 7 laps, because DS took them away, but we don't talk about DS Baby Park. It's also nice to see that with the combination of all the extra items flying around, because double items, 12 players, the entire course is anti-gravity, and in 200cc especially, this is more chaotic than it is in Double Dash. And I'm here for it. The music getting faster every lap too, and on the last lap, the whole course starts glowing and the music starts from the middle? Yeah, who doesn't love that? Realistically, Baby Park was already one of my top courses from Double Dash, just because I love the chaos. Mario Kart 8 brings it back, adds more chaos. So yeah, this is peak Baby Park right here. I think, for me, this is gonna slot solidly into mid-A tier. Finally, for the first time in, well, ever, basically, a GBA track gets an actual proper remake. And good lord, they did wonders with Cheeseland. Once again, we have one of the best courses from its original game being brought into Mario Kart 8, and just getting even better. And not only is the original Cheeseland one of the best courses in Super Circuit, if you played every single course in the series in order, starting from Super Mario Kart, original Cheeseland is the first S tier you would encounter. And I think it deserves it. The original alone was already fantastic. This remake admittedly does kind of sour the aesthetic a bit. Rest in peace, Moon aesthetic. But I still think the new aesthetic is pretty good. There's some people out there who go, oh, it's a desert track now. It's not a desert. Deserts need sand. That's not sand, that's cheese. And even if it's not the moon anymore, I think the new aesthetic still works really well. Now we've got the cheese mountains in the background, there's giant slices of pizza, the starting line is held up by forks. I mean, come on. They just leaned into the whole thing now, except I do wish it was still on the moon, or at the very least nighttime. But enough about aesthetics. I mean, what good is a course that's great to look at if it's not also fun to play on? And let me tell you, this course is just as fun to play on as it is to look at. The layout has actually been expanded from the original, which definitely makes things more interesting. The entire second half being anti-gravity is nice, the chain chomps are a pretty nice addition to make up for the obstacles we lost. And gotta love the fact that there's just Swiss holes all throughout the track for you to trick on. I don't know about you guys, but for me, Cheeseland is an easy S tier. Wild Woods is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, come on, you've got an entire town of Toads and Shy Guys living in a tree, and you are just driving in, on, and through said tree. Like, you can't deny, that is a phenomenal theme. Although, remember what I said about Cheeseland about a minute ago? What good is a course that's amazing to look at if it's not fun to play on? Yeah, unfortunately for Wild Woods, the phenomenal aesthetic, it's great, but it doesn't really cover the admittedly kind of bland gameplay it brings. I don't know. I really don't have a lot to say on this course. I think the aesthetic is phenomenal. The gameplay, I feel nothing. Those two things basically balance out into me giving this course a mid-B tier. I know it's got a cult following. I'm not one of those people, though. Animal Crossing. A series that I actually have never played any of. So, this course to me, I don't know, the references all mean nothing to me. I've never played the series. But the course itself is pretty nice. Yeah, it's a fairly simple layout, but I think a simple layout is exactly what was needed considering, you know, there's technically 4 different versions of this track, even if they're only slightly different from each other. Well, slightly different in terms of gameplay. Aesthetically, they are all completely unique in both visuals and music, and they pull it off really well. Like, I think all 4 versions of this course look great, and the music for them all is great. I will say, based on my incredibly minimal Animal Crossing knowledge, I think they were able to represent the series decently well with this track. But again, that could just be me not knowing anything about the series. When it comes to the ranking here, we're only doing one course ranking. The 4 seasons are not different enough in playstyle for me to rank them all separately. Music will be separate when we get to that tier list at the end, but as for the course itself, all 4 versions are close enough that I'm going to give Animal Crossing as a whole a high B tier. Did they really have to name the course Animal Crossing, though? They could have come up with something better. Neo Bowser City is here. 3rd best course for Mario Kart 7. Always glad to see it come back. They gave it the DK Jungle treatment, though. Music barely changed at all. The course itself, the only change that was made was a admittedly unnecessary anti-gravity section. However, not changing at all from an already great course? I'll take it. The course is still great. I would maybe even argue that thanks to 200cc existing now, this course is even more fun than it was in 7. I don't think I need to say how good this course is aesthetically, but I'll do it anyways. Futuristic city, nighttime, in the rain. At least for me, that's one of my favorite aesthetics. And then we've got tons of Bowser iconography everywhere as well, which makes sense. This is his city after all. It's just nice to see a Bowser course that is not a castle for once. At the end of the day, though, this is still the same Neo Bowser City we all know and love. Still has a bunch of twisty turns, especially at the end. Still has the fun glider shortcut. You can still hit the start line if you want. I think for me, this is going to be a low S tier course. Yeah, it's a tiny bit of an upgrade compared to 7, but comparatively, there are just so many better courses in this game than there are in 7, so it's a little bit lower. Oh, Ribbon Road. Another course with just a fantastic aesthetic here. Might be my favorite in the game, but it's definitely bare minimum top 5. Gameplay-wise, it's still pretty good. Not my favorite, but it's still kind of fun to play on. This isn't another Wild Woods scenario where I love the aesthetic, but the gameplay makes me feel nothing. I do enjoy playing on this course, just I feel like the aesthetic is carrying this course by a long shot. I actually do think it's pretty neat that the gameplay is split into kind of 3 mini sections. We have the red section, which is just fairly standard, the green section with the Mecha Koopas, and then the blue section with the very wavy road. I know there's a lot of people who are not a fan of that, but we know why. And the shortcuts in this course are also really cool, especially in the anti-grav section. I think my favorite design detail here, though, is that the original version, like a lot of SNES and GBA tracks, just had those colorful blocks along the sides of it. And here, while yes, they are kind of still there, they're not just blocks haphazardly thrown onto the track anymore, which doesn't fit most of the courses that it's on, although, ironically, I think it would have worked here. Instead, they decided to make them part of the castles or the walls or whatever else they decided to put into this course, because it's so perfectly designed that they just fit. The new surf rock remix of the theme is also pretty good. Different interpretation, but I still like it. And that honestly applies to this course as a whole. Ribbon Road, for me, is going to I'm going to place it in the middle of A tier. Super Bell Subway. I'm going to say this now. I have no shame in calling this my favorite new course from the Wii U DLC that is not related to F-Zero. This is just perfect, man. I love everything they did with this course. It gives me the same kind of vibes as a course like Coconut Mall or Sunshine Airport. Like, middle of a train station and on the train tracks? This isn't a place that cars should be racing. But we're doing it anyways, because why not? This is Mario Kart. Give me more absurd ideas. The underground portion of this track is also another great example of how split paths should be used. You can either take the main route and have to deal with the trains, you can take the longer route and have to avoid the trains, or, from the longer route, you can just jump on top of the trains. Who cares anymore? I also find it interesting that they put a glider section underground in this course. It feels weird, But it also works for the track because you can just kind of go over the trains with the glider too, so I'll allow it. It's actually pretty neat. Also, just a kind of neat fact about this course, it takes place in and under the same exact city that N64 Rainbow Road is over. I mean, I already mentioned earlier that this is my favorite non-F-Zero Nitro track in the Wii U DLC. I think it's pretty easy to tell. This course is going to be going straight into the S tier. And here we are, the final course in the Wii U DLC, Big Blue. Do I even need to say how good this course is? It was the perfect finale for the Wii U DLC. And like Mute City before it, this course is just pure speed. Although I like that they do things differently here. Where Mute City is basically just a ton of boost panels thrown everywhere, here on Big Blue we got conveyor belts, we got rushing water, we got everything! We even have, what is in my opinion one of the coolest shortcuts in the game, the Big Blue Section 2 gap jump. The decision to have the entire course given underwater physics as well is an interesting one, but god, it makes pulling off the shortcuts so much more fun. And I guess I may as well say it while we're here, the music on this course is also incredible. It's also neat that the third section gets its own music that's somehow even more hype than the regular theme. But I think we all know where this is going. Big Blue is a phenomenal course that I would not change a thing about. This is perfection right here. And in fact, Big Blue is the only course in this game that I think comes close to rivaling Mount Wario for the top spot. Alright, here we are. It's halftime. God, we're only halfway through this video and it's already so long. Here's the tier list, by the way, in case you wanted to know what we've got so far. Remember, this is not in order yet. The ordering will be happening at the very end of the video. And don't worry if those lower tiers look a little bit empty. Unfortunately, the Booster Course Pass will fix that. There's still a lot of good courses in the second half here, but there's also quite a few bad ones. But I think we should stop wasting time and just jump into the Booster Course Pass. Alright, the Booster Course Pass is going to start off with the Golden Dash Cup and Paris Promenade. Unfortunately, though, Paris Promenade is immediately going into F tier for being French. Nah, I'm just kidding. This course actually is pretty good. Especially as far as, like, the city tracks go, at least those in the first half of the DLC. Paris Promenade, I think, serves as a perfectly acceptable introduction to city tracks, not only for people who have never played Tour, but also for people who do play Tour, but now need to figure out how these courses are going to play in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I think it changing only on the third lap does make a bit of sense, again, as an introductory course for how these cities are going to work in 8 Deluxe. It is a shame, though, that we don't get every variation of Paris from Tour like we do for all the other cities, but oh well. The version of the course that we have is honestly fine as it is. I do also think it was an interesting decision for them not to start the Booster Course Pass with the first city track, but we can get more into that when we get to the actual first city track later. Beyond that, though, not too much else to say about Paris Promenade. I think it serves as a pretty good introduction to city courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and for that, it's just going to get a low B tier from me. Toad Circuit! No, I actually do not care for this course. I don't think it should be in the game. I get that Nintendo probably wanted some simpler courses for the early parts of the BCP, but did they have to use Toad Circuit? There were plenty of better options, even from Mario Kart 7 they could have gone with. It also just feels weird that this is a starter course, but it's second in the cup, but whatever, I guess. It's also just wild to me that this course on the Nintendo Switch looks worse than it did on the 3DS. But hey, that's the early BCP for you. Just copied over exactly from a mobile game. At the very least, Toad Circuit appearing here means that we probably won't be seeing it for the next 2, maybe even 3 games, so that's one upside, I guess, but yeah, this course is F tier. On a much more positive note, Choco Mountain is here to round off N64's top 3, all being in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Truthfully, there's not even a lot that I have to say about this course. I just really enjoy playing on it. The music remix it got is great. I do think it's a little bit sad that we lost being able to fall backwards and be in a lower place on the track, but I suppose with the addition of the glider for that area, it makes sense that that's not there anymore. I still miss it though. I also think that Choco Mountain is definitely the best looking course in Wave 1 of the Booster Course Pass, although it's not really that high of a bar if we're being honest. But, I don't know. The course is fun. I think the changes that it got are, you know, they're pretty good. Again, the glide I'm still kind of iffy on, but I guess it mixes things up. It's something new at least. Beyond that, not much else to say. Choco Mountain is going to be going somewhere in the middle of B tier. Yeah, I think we all knew Coconut Mall would be coming. I mean, they did use this music for the reveal trailer after all, which, you know, makes sense. May as well bring in one of the most popular courses in the series. That being said though, in this game, I think it's just alright. Now don't get me wrong, this course is still good, it is still Coconut Mall, but at the same time, I feel like that's kind of part of the issue I have with it in this game. Nintendo knows this course is a fan favorite, and as such they don't really want to make any major changes to it because they're thinking, oh, people already love this course as it is, we shouldn't need to do anything to it. Then again, I say they don't want to make any meaningful changes, but when this course first dropped, the cars at the end didn't move, which is especially strange because they did move in Tour. And then when Wave 2 came out, they did make it so the cars move again, but it's actually unique. Even in Tour, the cars had the original movement, but here they have a much more chaotic spin, which I don't know if I'd say I prefer it, but I do like it. It's definitely more interesting than the basic just back and forth that they normally did. I also just want to add, when they first showed off this course in, you know, some promo art for the BCP, it did look a little bit different coloring-wise, and I think it looked better there. But Coconut Mall, I mean, it's still Coconut Mall, but I think this is easily the weakest version of the course, but it's still high A tier. Tokyo Blur, more like Tokyo Bore. Seriously, this course is just nothing. I get that it was an earlier release as far as Tour is concerned. If I'm not mistaken, it was the second city track. But come on. There's nothing here. There's like maybe 4 thwomps and 1 shortcut. Beyond that, this course offers basically nothing. Like, come on, Nintendo. You guys are a Japan-based company. How did you fumble this hard on the city track based on somewhere in Japan? I just feel like, as far as city tracks go, Tokyo Blur definitely has the most missed potential. Tokyo Blur for me is easily an F tier, probably my pick for the 3rd worst course in the game, and yet, it's not even the worst course in the Lucky Cat Cup. Shroom Ridge, in my opinion, went from being pretty forgettable in Mario Kart DS to easily the standout star of Wave 1 of the BCP. And I'm going to give a little bit of maybe a hot take here. While yes, obviously this course would have looked great in the base Wii U style graphics, because, I mean, what wouldn't? I actually think that Shroom Ridge and all of the DS courses in the BCP pull off the more cartoony Tour art style in 8 really well. And unlike most other Tour ports of courses, which, This came actually before the Tour port, but that's besides the point. This isn't just a one-to-one copy of the original. They actually made a couple pretty nice changes. Namely 2 shortcuts. We have one little glide ramp over the grassy field area, which, it's inconsequential, but it's kinda nice. And then we have a jump that they added between the cliffs, which, again, inconsequential, but kinda neat. Then, of course, there's the real best part about this track. They remade the music so well here. Probably among one of my favorite pieces of music in the game now. If it wasn't already obvious, Shroom Ridge for me is an easy S tier. Sky Garden in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is divisive, to say the least. As for me, I think it's really nice. It's not as good as the original, but it's still pretty good. I know they absolutely eviscerated the layout, but I don't know. I like the layout that we have here, even if it is a lot simpler than the original. The one, I guess, kind of complaint I have about this version of the course, that is not related to the layout, is why are the tiles now orange? The original version of the course, they were gray and blue. DS, same thing. Tour, where this version of the course originated, they're gray. Why did Mario Kart 8 change them to orange? It would have looked so much better with the normal gray. I also just feel like with how drastic the layout change was, this course would probably be looked on a lot more positively if it wasn't connected to Sky Garden. Like, if it was his own separate thing. But it's Sky Garden, and for me, it's still good. It's gonna get a low A tier. Ninja Hideaway. So earlier I mentioned that Shroom Ridge was the grand standout star of Wave 1 of the BCP. Yeah, this course almost made me regret buying it. There's genuinely nothing about this course that I find even remotely likable. The layout is awful. It plays like a poorly made custom track. The music, admittedly, that one comes down to the instrumentation. It got a rendition in the BCP credits that is passable, but still not great. But it's an upgrade from this. And the visuals as well, it's just, well, it's a Wave 1 track. Unfortunately, not one of the better looking ones, and in fact, the only course from Wave 1 that didn't get some kind of change when Wave 2 released. And just like Ice Ice Outpost earlier, Ninja Hideaway tries to do the whole, oh, we've got 2 paths for the whole course thing. And once again, it is a poor way of doing it because there is no difference in how the paths play, except at the very end of the track. Because there, you can at least take a glide ramp to start the next lap on the higher path, which, you know, doesn't matter, but it does something at least. In my opinion, Ninja Hideaway is a complete failure of a Mario Kart course in every possible aspect. Easily the worst course in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and the sole resident of today's G tier. Honestly, the fact that there's a Shy Guy course in this game worse than Sunset Wilds remake is incredible. New York Minute is going to be starting off Wave 2, and this is a pretty decent track. Again, fairly simple, but this was the very first Tour City track, so they were still figuring things out, and for the first one, it's not terrible, honestly. It's also the only city track based on somewhere that I've actually been. So like I mentioned earlier with Paris, I do find it interesting that they decided not to start the BCP off with the first city track, but to instead start with Paris. But again, the way that they routed both New York and Paris in 8 Deluxe, I think Paris made more sense to be the start, and then New York gets to start off Wave 2. And again, it's a decent start for the wave. I also just want to add that, similar to Tokyo, they definitely could have done a lot more with this course based on, you know, what city it takes place in, but at the same time, this was the very first city track, and it actually has more going on than Tokyo, so I'm gonna give it a little bit of slack. But Overall, New York Minute, I think for me, is going to sit at the higher end of C tier. Alright, who invited Mario Circuit 3 into the BCP? This course, just like Toad Circuit, has no reason to be here. But at the very least, Toad Circuit, you can say, yeah, it's a first-time retro, so they just got it out of the way here. And I'll be fine with that. Mario Circuit 3 cannot use that excuse, because now it is tied with SNES Rainbow Road for the most recurring track in the series at 5 appearances. It also just doesn't feel like Nintendo tried with this course. Like, visually, it is easily my pick for the worst looking course in the game. Musically, at first it sounds like they're doing something new, and then it's basically just the original song. And gameplay-wise, yeah, this is still the exact same Mario Circuit 3 that has been in every other time it's shown up. If they wanted to give us a SNES Mario Circuit in the BCP this badly, they should have either gone with 4 for a first-time retro, or 2, because that one's kind of decent. And yeah, 4 isn't in Tour, but it's a SNES Mario Circuit, they could have made it in Tour. Mario Circuit 3, though, easy F tier. Kalimari Desert in 8 Deluxe to me is like a few other courses. It's easily the best version of the course that we have, but it's still not super good. I do appreciate the changes that it got here, though. Especially when it comes to the second lap, where you can actually drive through the tunnel intentionally now, instead of it just being an Easter egg. But I gotta say, did they really need to throw that random tour ramp onto the course? Like, you already have the arrows. Just use the arrows to indicate that you're changing direction. You don't need to just throw a ramp in there that appears out of nowhere and doesn't fit. But whatever. Going through the tunnel to start lap 3 is also just interesting because it makes Kalimari Desert one of 2 courses in the game to have multiple starting lines that is not a fully sectioned-based track. And I just think that's kind of neat, I guess. Doesn't do too much to make the course that much better, but it's a nice change nonetheless. Kalimari Desert, again, it's not bad, but it's also not particularly good. So, for me at least, it's just gonna sit somewhere in C tier. Now, Waluigi Pinball, because we all knew we were getting some fan favorites, and good lord, does Waluigi Pinball hard carry this cup. I'm gonna be honest though, most of the stuff that I said about Coconut Mall kind of applies here too. Nintendo knows this course is popular, yet they didn't want to change too much about it. Heck, it's actually the only course in the entire game to use repeated music, because DS Wario Stadium shares music with it and has been in since base Wii U. But Nintendo just decided to reuse the music because, while that does make sense, I still think it would have been neat, even just to set Waluigi Pinball apart in this game, if they had used the original music. I also just think, again, they could have done a bit more with this course. Like, Waluigi Pinball definitely feels like they could have thrown anti-gravity in somewhere. Maybe the section after the cannon before you reach the pinball table, or have the pinball table itself be anti-gravity. I don't know. The point is, I definitely feel like anti-gravity could have worked somewhere in this track, but it's early BCP. We're not throwing anti-gravity onto any retros yet. There's also just things inextricably missing from this version of the track, namely the different sounds when you change place, and the sound when you leave the pinball table. I'm not sure why those were left out of this version of the course. 8 Deluxe Waluigi Pinball to me is essentially the same as 8 Deluxe Coconut Ball. I'm happy to have it, but I do wish Nintendo would give it a bit more changes. So you know what? Waluigi Pinball's just gonna go right next to Coconut Mall in A tier. Sydney Sprint, at least to me, is where Nintendo started hitting their stride with city tracks in 8 Deluxe. The first 3 were either okay or straight up bad, but this one's actually pretty good. I think the layout here is pretty enjoyable, the music is nice, and I think it's neat that, unlike most other city tracks where it just kind of feels like you're going through basic roads, which this one does still suffer a little bit from, there is at least the major set piece in this course of the bridge that you go across on every lap, but each lap you approach it from a different direction. I also think that Sydney Sprint routes itself pretty well, whereas there's a good amount of city tracks, especially later on, that you just look at the minimap and it just looks like a pile of spaghetti. Sydney, you can mostly understand how the track is going to go, although I do think Nintendo definitely should have put some sort of indicator on the minimap for the route you're currently on for your lap, but that's just me. Maybe if we get tracks that change every lap in the next game, Nintendo will actually think of that. Sydney Sprint is easily the best city track we've seen so far, and I genuinely think it is one of the better ones overall. So for me, this is going to get a low A tier. GBA Snowland now marks the third instance in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe of Nintendo bringing back my bottom one course from its original game. Thankfully, Snowland was much more of a N64 Rainbow Road than it was a Grumble Volcano. That is to say, they made this course actually good. I actually think the original Snowland layout wasn't too terrible, and it seems like Nintendo thought the same because it is the only GBA track in this game to have its layout entirely unchanged besides just adding some verticality. And I think it works great. On top of that, we even got a new, pretty big shortcut towards the beginning of the track where you can just take a mushroom between the trees and skip, like, a good chunk of the course. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of the old Mario Kart Wii Ultra shortcuts in a way. And of course, the new music they gave Snowland is amazing as well. I love the new intro they threw onto it. Because the old one just kind of started. This one, really nice intro. I'm gonna be honest, the original Snowland, if not for the screen shaking, would have been, in my opinion, the first actually kind of good snow course in the series, but we know what happened there. Here in 8 Deluxe, it's third place in terms of snow courses, but hey, you know what? This massive globe has brought it all the way to high A tier. You know what? I'm just gonna say it. I do not care for Mushroom Gorge. I understand why people enjoy it, I can kind of see why it's popular, but in my opinion, it's just kind of alright. That being said, I do think this course got some nice changes in 8 Deluxe. The new shortcut at the beginning to get onto the bridge is kind of nice, but I don't really see it being used too often. And I do like that the cave section was revamped to have all three of the paths that it's had across 7 and Wii, with the basic right path, the basic left path, but also still keeping 7's glider mushroom as well. However, in this game, Mushroom Gorge did join the club with DK Jungle, Grumble Volcano, and Neo Bowser City in that they didn't really make any changes to its music. It's essentially just the original music, but slightly higher quality, which is unfortunate. I think this music could have been really nice given the Mario Kart 8 treatment. In a game with so many great courses, Mushroom Gorge just doesn't really do too much to stand out in my opinion. It's still kinda good, but honestly the best I can do is mid-B tier. Now Sky High Sunday, this is a pretty fun course. I don't know why people started hating on it a little while after its release, because I remember initially it was pretty well liked. Maybe it's because the layout is really simple, but I don't know. I think it is still able to be a pretty compelling track with that. And being completely honest, for the first couple months of this course being out, I didn't even realize that the layout was just a straight up oval. I also do enjoy, at the very end of the course, how there is a pretty big shortcut you can do, albeit only really in 200cc or if you have a mushroom, where you can just skip, like, the entirety of the final turn. I don't know, shortcuts like that will usually give a course at least a couple extra points, in my opinion. And hey, would you look at that? We actually have anti-gravity in this course. See? You can put anti-gravity into some stuff BCP, even if it is just an entirely new course for now. And side note, when this course eventually got added to Tour, they ruined it, because the entire course is in anti-gravity. How are you going to put it in a game without anti-gravity? It's just so much worse there, but thankfully, we're talking about the version of the course that's actually good. So yeah, fun gameplay, pretty decent aesthetic. I think Sky High Sundae is probably also going to be headed for mid-B tier. Alright, I see what you're doing, Nintendo. You give us a good city track in Wave 2 to kind of get our hopes up, like, oh, okay, maybe these will start being pretty good. And then you open up Wave 3 with London Loop, which is... well, it's better than Tokyo at least, but not by much. Really, the only thing pushing it above Tokyo is the fact that the Chain Chomps coming off the chains and just roaming the course on lap 3 is more interesting than anything Tokyo has done at all. Beyond the Chain Chomps, though, most of this course is just empty roads, which... it's just boring. Like, come on. I know you can do better than this, Nintendo. I've seen the later city tracks and how good those are. Because at least with those, you can excuse a kind of messy layout because it's interesting. London Loop, there's basically nothing going on, and at least to me, this is where the tour layouts really started to feel just indecipherable. I don't even really have too much else to say about London Loop, because there's nothing else really to comment on. It's roads, and the chomps come off the chain on lap 3. That's it. I think when people talk about how bad these city courses are, they're not talking about all of them. They don't mean the ones like Singapore, Rome, Madrid, all those actual good ones. They're thinking of London, and they're thinking of Tokyo. And who would have guessed? London is going to be joining Tokyo right in the F tier. Hey, would you look at that? Nintendo actually found the lake in this version of the course. Seriously, why was the original called Boo Lake? And there wasn't even any water? Whatever. Thankfully, 8 Deluxe and Tour were here to fix that. You know, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Boo Lake actually does a lot right. It's the first retro track in the BCP to have anti-gravity, and I think it uses it fine enough. It's the first course in order in this game since Piranha Plant Slide to have an underwater section, which it definitely should have, considering it's Boo Lake, after all. You know, they finally found the lake, we may as well be able to go into it. Its layout is actually kept mostly intact from the original, the only real change being one turn from the original. Now it's just a shortcut, which, fair enough, doesn't hurt anyone. And visually, it got a major glow up too. Granted, Wave 3 is when BCP courses started to look a bit better, and yeah, they definitely show that off with Boo Lake. I honestly thought the original version of this course was pretty bad, but wouldn't you know it, 8 Deluxe coming and making another bad course pretty good. I think this version of Boo Lake is low A, maybe high B tier. We'll see how I'm feeling when I order everything later. Rock Mountain, because yep, we need a couple more 7 fan favorites. And here in 8, I mean, they didn't really change too much about it. At least on a gameplay front. The only real change there was making the climb up the mountain at the end into anti-gravity, which kind of feels forced, but whatever, it doesn't change the section too much. The gliding, which is the main focus of the course, is still completely unchanged. That's still great. The real issue this course has is, again, visually, it just looks so much worse than it did on the 3DS. The gameplay kind of makes up for that, but at the same time, the fact that it looks so much worse now definitely drags it down a decent amount. The music is still really good at least, but I don't know. The gameplay is practically unchanged, the music is still pretty good, but the visuals just take me so much out of this course. Because the whole thing with this course is it's about the scenic glides. The glides are still there, but the scenes are not. The original Rock Mountain, I had an S tier, but here, in 8 Deluxe, I think the poor visuals drag it down all the way to B tier. And hey, would you look at that? Another fan favorite, but this time from Wii. Now, unlike Coconut Mall, Maple Treeway, I actually think still functions just fine without any major changes. Heck, it even brought back half pipes into 8 Deluxe, which, always a nice change. I missed half pipes. Honestly, the only real major change this course got, compared to 7, was just bringing back the half pipes, and similar to Mushroom Gorge, they just added a new shortcut at the beginning of the track, which this one I actually can see getting at least some use. We even got Maple Treeway roughly a year before it was supposed to come out, which, yeah, may have hurt it a little bit visually, but I think the gameplay and music still being great are able to make up for the bit of a visual downgrade this course got. It's still Maple Treeway after all. And again, this is how you treat a fan favorite that keeps coming back. Give it a couple minor changes each time, add something a little new. Just give it something. Maple Treeway in 8 Deluxe for me easily is going to fit its way into the X tier. And now we've reached Berlin Byways, which, at least in my opinion, is basically the gateway of city courses, because from here on out, they're all good. Some of them are great, but they're all at least good from here. This one, though, we all know the real best selling point isn't necessarily the gameplay, while that is pretty good. We play this course for the music. And the fact that the original music was already great and 8 Deluxe made it even better is just the cherry on top. I also just think Berlin Byways is pretty neat for being the only city course to actually have traffic on it, as well as the only course in all of Mario Kart, up until this point, to have Whomps. There's a ton of courses that have thwomps, but only place you'll find Whomps in Mario Kart is the Berlin Wall. Honestly, I've gone back and forth over whether the best city track in the first half of the BCP is Berlin or Sydney. So I'm just going to put Berlin right next to Sydney in low A tier, and we'll see how I'm feeling when I order stuff later. Peach Gardens has always been at least a little bit popular by DS course standards, and I'm happy to see it here in 8 Deluxe, even if I did choose to remove it when I remade the BCP. And over here, it got some pretty nice changes too. The hedge maze getting a visual revamp is pretty nice, considering before it was just kind of a bunch of squares. Now it actually looks like a properly well-kept hedge maze. The area at the end is a little bit different. There's just a piranha plant there now instead of being just one turn, which I like. And lap 3, you just go backwards, which Calamari Desert, it kind of made sense for the lap to change, because in Tour there is a Calamari Desert 2. That doesn't exist for Peach Gardens in Tour, but I think, at least personally, it might be a reference to that one DS mission mode where you had to go around this course backwards. Which, you know what? If so, that's a cool reference, and if not, it's still just a cool change for the track. Going backwards through the track also just lets you get a new perspective of it, especially because on lap 3 you just glide over the hedge maze rather than driving through it. And you also get to give Luigi a high five, which that's always nice. I'm not sure why the circle at the very beginning was cut off to only be part of it though. That seems like a strange change. And even in early concept we see of it, it wasn't fenced off, but it doesn't matter too much. Peach Gardens for me is nice, but realistically, I can't see myself giving it anything other than a B tier. Merry Mountain is another course that is honestly heavily carried by its aesthetic. The gameplay isn't terrible, at least the first half of the course isn't, but the aesthetic is really what you play this course for. Because who doesn't love Christmas? Yeah, the layout is fairly simple, but I don't know. The first half of the course is still pretty nice to play. I don't know what happened at the end, though. They really were just like, yeah, here's a straight downhill with nothing going on. Like, you guys could have at least thrown some snowmen or something in there. That would have made it nice. And we've got anti-gravity here, which doesn't really feel like it's needed. The course definitely functions without it, as we can see in Tour, but whatever. It's nice, I suppose. Granted, the second half does still have a little bit going for it, but not too much. The half-pipe to get items is nice, even if there's items right next to it, and every now and then a train comes by and drops some coins onto the track, but neither one of those is really anything super special. There's also two kind of strange things about this course, although only one really applies to this version of the course. In Tour, for whatever reason, the half-pipe is purple, only half-pipe in the series to be like that. No idea why they did it. But here, it's the only Nitro in the BCP not to end a cup, instead being the third course in the Moon Cup, which I don't really get why Nintendo did that. They could have just had it end off the other cup like they did with the Nitros in the second half, but I'm not complaining. It's still a good course regardless. That being said, I still feel like for the kind of lackluster second half, the best I can give it is B tier. And would you look at that? Nintendo has not only brought back the best Rainbow Road in the series, yes, it's better than Wii, but they've somehow managed to make it even better. Visually, this course has been given such a good glow up. I love how the road is actually a little bit transparent now. It adds a lot to that kind of spacey feeling that this course is obviously trying to go for. And they fixed the moon, too. The original version of the course, the moon was super bright for no reason, and 8 Deluxe fixed that. And on the topic of the moon, of course, they just had to make it anti-gravity. What else were they gonna do? And I like the new shortcut that leads into the moon section as well. It's just a nice big jump, even if you do lose out on an item or so. But I still think it's fun. Although it did also cost us the gap jump at the end, but oh well. I think this is a much more fun shortcut anyways. And then in the final section, yeah, they didn't really change too much of it. I always thought that was kind of the weakest part of the course, but don't get me wrong, it's still phenomenal. Like, again, this is easily the best Rainbow Road in the series. I'll give you one guess as to where this course is going. Straight up to peak. This is probably the third best course in the entire game. So remember how earlier I mentioned Sydney and Berlin were where the city courses started to get good? Amsterdam is where they start to feel actually unique. Gameplay-wise, this course is great. Instead of it just being regular roads the whole time, we've got an underwater section where you go through a river, and if I'm not mistaken, is the only underwater section in a city track. We have a really big glide jump at the beginning. The gameplay here is great. There's just a few issues with other aspects of the course. While yes, gameplay does reign supreme, unfortunately that's kind of all Amsterdam's got. Visually, it's not exactly the best. You can tell with Wave 4 they put the visual focus onto other courses, like just look at the flower field. And musically as well, I think this course is one of the few bad pieces of music in this game. But at least the course itself is still good. Fun to play on, great layout. I think I'm gonna have to give this one low B tier. Riverside Park in 8 Deluxe, for me, is kind of like Shroom Ridge, where it went from pretty forgettable in its original appearance to actually really cool now. By BCP standards especially, this course visually looks incredible. Granted, you know, the visual quality has been improving as the BCP has gone on. We're at Wave 4 now, but still, something about this course just hits different. It's just jumping out of the cave from behind a waterfall and just seeing that beautiful sunset. Ugh, perfect. Yeah, the trees look a little bit iffy, but oh well, what can you do? I also think it's kind of neat visually that This course does have the typical GBA blocks, but unlike every other course that has them, where the pattern is red, yellow, green, blue, for whatever reason here, yellow's replaced with orange. I don't know why, but honestly, I kind of like it here. It kind of sets this course apart a little bit more. Gameplay-wise, this course is still really good too. Layout's a little bit different now. We've got a new cave section and some verticality, which always nice to see GBA tracks getting verticality now. And of course, we've got patuis now, which I think are a very welcome addition to the course. But I think even with all the stuff that I've said about Riverside Park, it doesn't do enough truly special to get anything higher than the top end of B tier. I still really enjoy this course, but it just feels like it's got to be doing something at least a little bit more to get higher. Nintendo really just wanted to bring back every banger Wii course except Toad's Factory, didn't they? All I'm saying, thank God Wave 3 brought back half-pipes, because DK Summit would not have worked without them. First and foremost, thank you Nintendo for fixing the statue. I have no idea why the original version of this course had a statue of Mario instead of Donkey Kong, but Nintendo fixed it, it's all good now. And beyond that, basically the entire rest of the course is completely intact, even with the double gap cut in the middle. And again, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe just makes it better. It's not a ton better, considering the original course was already incredible, but 8 Deluxe just has a couple extra touches that make it better. Namely the fact that A, it's in a game that actually controls well now, and B, I like how at the very end half-pipe section, when you do a trick, there's a crowd cheering for you now. Just a nice little extra. Beyond those two minor changes in the statue though, yeah, this is still the exact same DK Summit from Wii. Still one of the best courses in the game, one of the most fun, and I know some people don't like the half-pipes in 8 because they are a little bit iffy, but to me, that makes them more fun. DK Summit Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is going to be sitting in the lower ends of X tier. Oh, Yoshi's Island. In case you couldn't tell, Yoshi is my favorite Mario character. So getting a whole Yoshi's Island crossover track, sign me up. And it's incredibly well done too, from the coins to all the sound effects, bonus start sound, bonus results sound. They did this course so well. They packed so much into such an admittedly fairly small course. It's honestly amazing. And even in terms of the landscapes, they fit in a ton. Like, really, going from the inside of a castle to a snow-covered area to a volcano, it's completely seamless. The fact that they managed to pull this off, oh, I love this course. And on top of that, we have the Winged Cloud shortcut, which, in my opinion, is one of the coolest shortcuts slash references any of these crossover tracks have done. I can't not mention the music either. The Yoshi's Island athletic theme is one of my favorite Mario themes in general, and hearing it remixed like this for Mario Kart, oh, it's just perfect. I think this isn't going to be a surprise to anyone, but Yoshi's Island is sitting comfortably on the higher end of X tier. I'm not gonna lie, I really don't have too much to say about Bangkok Rush. It's a kind of fun city track, but that's kind of it. I enjoy the parking garage turn where you can just hold a drift the entire time. I enjoy just the general layout of the course. It's pretty fun to play on, but it just doesn't feel like there's a ton to say about it. Except for one thing. Nintendo, why did you get rid of the inky piranha plants? They were such a cool and unique thing that set this course apart from literally every other course in the series. And you got rid of them. Give them back, Nintendo, please. I guess the split Skyrail path that we pass on laps 1 and 3 is also pretty neat. I just, again, wish they would have kept the inky piranha plants in there. I don't know, I really feel like I'm grasping at things to say about this course. it's just kind of alright. Not terrible, but I enjoy it at least a little bit. The layout and routing are nice, the music is alright. Visually, it's not too bad either. I think Bangkok Rush is just gonna find its way somewhere into B tier. DS Mario Circuit was an interesting pick for the BCP that surprised pretty much everyone, but you know what? I'm actually happy with it here. I think that as far as circuit tracks go, DS Mario Circuit was always one of the slightly better ones, and here in 8 Deluxe it got some pretty nice changes. Mainly aesthetic changes, but hey, it's better than nothing. And I do think the new forest section is pretty nice. I do also enjoy the Wiggler being in the forest, although I wish he woke up a bit earlier, because on 200cc you can't see him at all. And I get that, yeah, everything in the BCP is made for Tour, which doesn't have 200cc, but come on, they could have at least just tweaked the timing for when he wakes up. Not a huge deal, though. And like I mentioned earlier with the other DS courses, I think it pulls off the BCP art style in 8 Deluxe really well. Would I have preferred something like Airship Fortress over this? Maybe, but at the same time, I am perfectly fine with DS Mario Circuit's inclusion. And in my opinion, it is a mid-B tier course. How does Nintendo keep doing it? They keep bringing back the best courses from their respective games and just making them even better. It was the best course in Double Dash. It was the only retro before Mario Kart 7 that I'd say was actually given, like, proper treatment. And here in 8 Deluxe, it's still even better. This is how you bring back a fan favorite track multiple times. You keep innovating on it and add more things that make it better each time. The two new upper paths they added are both really feeling like natural additions to the course. Do they need to be there? No, and in fact they're not even there in the Tour version of this course, but here in 8 Deluxe, I think they work just fine. It's just an extra path that you get if you take the half-pipe. And I guess it incorporates some anti-gravity, although that more so just feels kind of like they threw it in there just because. And yeah, I know some people complain, oh, they changed how the piranha plants in the half-pipe section are angled. Oh well. Like, I can understand why some people are a little bit upset by that, but I don't know, it doesn't really bother me that much. I also think Waluigi Stadium is one of maybe two courses in the BCP that I would say actually lives up to the base game visual standards, because this looks amazing. I think it was definitely worth the extra 3-month wait we had for this course, and, you know, the fact that it was the first GameCube course in the BCP in Wave 4 still kind of bothers me, but again, it's a phenomenal course, so I think the wait was fine. If the placement isn't already obvious, Waluigi Stadium is definitely landing itself somewhere in the higher end of X tier. You know, initially I was confused when Nintendo gave us 3 city tracks in one wave, but Singapore Speedway I think served as a perfect end for Wave 4, and it's also easily the best city track in 8 Deluxe. The atmosphere here is great, the layout is pretty nice, and my only real complaint with this course, honestly, is I just wish the Chinatown section was a bit longer, because as it is, you just zoom right through it. You barely even get to hear the different music that it has. I do also think Lap 1 just kind of feels a little bit bland. Like, it's definitely the weakest of the 3, but at least it's the first lap, and the other 2 are really good and are definitely able to make up for the admittedly kind of weak beginning. Beyond those 2 small things, though, yeah, a great course. Honestly, one of my favorite things about it is just, I like how vertical it feels, because there is a lot of gliding in this for a city track. Singapore Speedway is a admittedly rare occurrence of me actually giving a tour track in 8 Deluxe S tier. It's on the lower end of S tier, but still S tier nonetheless. From my favorite city track in 8 Deluxe to my favorite city track in Tour. Athens Dash is going to be our next course, and it's definitely the most unique city track, I'll give it that. because for once, we're not going through the typical roads for the entire course. We're actually in kind of unique terrain. Who would have seen that? One of the city courses that does something to stand out is one of the best ones. Now, what happened that made this one my favorite in Tour but not 8 Deluxe? Honestly, it's nothing that this course did, but it's more so that a few others just got better than it. I still very much enjoy Athens Dash here in 8 Deluxe. It's still definitely one of the better city tracks. I just kinda prefer a couple others over it now. Okay, admittedly, a tiny bit of it is on Athens. I don't get why they removed the cannon from this course, but that was just a Wave 5 thing, and visually it isn't exactly the best, but again, I still very much enjoy this course gameplay-wise. I think the routing here is really well done. I will say, I do think that it's kind of funny that Lap 2 of Athens Dash in 8 Deluxe is based on a variant of the course that hadn't even released in Tour at the time of its release in 8 Deluxe, but I don't know, maybe it's just me that finds that kind of funny. Regardless though, Athens Dash is going to be another instance of me putting a Tour course into S tier because it deserves it. It's incredibly well done. Daisy Cruiser, honestly, just kind of exists. I've never really felt too strongly about any version of this course, although I do have a little bit more of an appreciation for the 8 Deluxe version after having played the original. It's still just kind of alright though. The best thing this course has going for it is definitely the vibes, because those here are immaculate. The gameplay though, it's just kind of whatever. I suppose the section with the tables going back and forth is pretty nice. That's a fairly unique obstacle, and I do enjoy the underwater cellar area, which I still don't really ever see a reason not to take because you get more items and it's faster, but I guess it mixes up the gameplay a little bit. But I really don't have too much to say about this course. The vibes are great, the gameplay is alright, and that's kind of it. No real complaints, but nothing really to make it stand out either. Daisy Cruise is just gonna end up somewhere in B tier. Now we're back to the really good courses though, with Moonview Highway. A course that I still cannot believe I'm actually a fan of now. From the second worst course in Wii to, well, we'll see where I put it in a bit. But just know, in 8 Deluxe, they fixed Moonview Highway. It is actually a very enjoyable course now. My only real complaint with this version of the course is that I preferred the old toll booth sounds, but that's such a minor thing in an otherwise incredibly improved course that I'm willing to let it slide. And you want to talk improvements this course got? Let's talk about the city section. I love how the boost panels now will just randomize every time you play the course. It just makes every time you play it feel unique, which, you know what? We love that in a Mario Kart track, because there's very few instances of something like that actually happening in this game. It was also just a kind of nice surprise in the BCP, because from what I saw there weren't really many people predicting it. And while yes, again, I did groan initially upon seeing it, because I thought it was gonna be awful like the original, with all the improvements it got, it's one of my favorite courses of Wave 5, and has gone from the second worst course in Wii, in my opinion, to low S tier here. Squeaky Clean Sprint, while I do still kind of think has a dumb name, that doesn't really matter when the course itself is this good. Like, this is up there with Ribbon Road in terms of one of, in my opinion, the most detailed backgrounds in any course in this game. And wouldn't you know it, both of these courses take place inside of giant versions of normal house rooms. And gameplay-wise, this course is an absolute delight. Not only just because of how unique its setting is, but also how the layout incorporates the setting. Like, alright, yeah, we've got underwater sections in a sink and in a bathtub. We've got a couple instances of taking different paths where you can go onto different levels of a shelf, or going behind the sink instead of going into it. Even the toilet sprays out water for you to reach higher paths in future laps. I just love this course, man. Squeaky Clean Sprint, in my opinion, should be the new gold standard for how Nintendo is going to be getting creative with these future courses. Like, give me more stuff on this kind of level. Heck, just bring this course back in Mario Kart 9, I'll be happy with that too. I don't think it'll come as too much of a surprise to say that Squeaky Clean Sprint is easily gonna land in the X tier, right? Up next, we have Tour LA Laps, which is immediately going to F tier for being based on... Wait, I already did that joke with Paris. Regardless, LA Laps is actually a really nice course. It's definitely interesting that it's the only city track to be fully sectioned and not just change every lap, but I feel like that helps it stand out a lot more, and as such, it also feels like it's the most varied city track. Admittedly, there are some sections that are better than others. There really isn't too much going on in the middle of the track, and I still think that the oil field is a very strange set piece, especially considering there's probably a lot more they could have done with Los Angeles, but you know what? It's unique, it adds some variety to the track, so I guess I'm fine with it. Just a weird choice. But I think we all know the real best thing this course got in 8 Deluxe is the fact that they fixed the music, because original LA Laps music, in my opinion, is hands down the worst piece of music in the entire series. Mario Kart 8 made it, decent. I still wouldn't call it great, but it's better than what came before, that's for sure. But I think as a course, LA Laps has a pretty nice layout. Again, I enjoy that it's the only fully sectioned city track. It's unique in that regard. The set pieces are strange choices, but unique. It helps the track feel varied. Each section is a different feeling. And section tracks as a whole are pretty good, even if LA is kind of on the lower end of those. That being said, it's still a low A tier course. Sunset Wilds, what did they do to you? Now I will say, to start off with something positive, I don't hate the gameplay. I think the gameplay is alright. It's still a bit of a downgrade compared to the original, but it's nice. It's still a decent layout. I wish it had a bit more verticality, though. We all know the real reason that this course is considered such a downgrade. They absolutely butchered the aesthetic here. Like, come on. This is known as the course where the sun sets. And it just doesn't do it here. It's just a static sunset the entire time. Now, I get people are saying like, oh, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe can't handle dynamic lighting. Well, then why did they bring this course back then? The way I see it, they had two options. Option 1, find a way to make the sunset work. We know that they could have figured a way out, because this is Nintendo. They definitely have the ability to figure it out, and modders were able to get a decent version of it working within like a day of the course releasing. Or they could have just given us a different course. If they wanted a GBA desert track for the BCP, Yoshi Desert was right there and got a fantastic remake and tour. Admittedly, the rest of the course from a visual standpoint isn't terrible except for the mud. I don't know why the mud looks so much worse here, considering that Riverside Park Last Wave had much better looking mud. Why didn't they just reuse that? But I don't know. This course just makes me upset, because the original Sunset Wilds is in my top 3 in Super Circuit. 8 Deluxe, unfortunately, downgrades it all the way to D tier. From a great course that was ruined, to a great course that got a little bit worse, and then much better. I'm very happy that Koopa Cape has made its way into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Because realistically, they just decided to throw all of the best Wii tracks in here, and yeah, it's a little bit much, but I don't care. These are great courses, especially considering the upgrades they're getting. Now first, I do want to talk about the one downgrade this course got compared to the original and 7, and that's the visuals. Even though the BCP did start improving the visual quality of tracks in the second half, some were unfortunately left out, and Koopa Cape is definitely one of those. However, the gameplay, in my opinion, more than makes up for it. I only really had 3 main issues with this course in 7, and all 3 of them have been fixed. They got rid of the glider section over the river. That was pretty dumb in my opinion. I don't get why they added that, because you're just skipping an entire section of the track. As well as the river section getting its music back. Again, not sure why 7 removed that. Glad it's here, and god, the new river section music is incredible. And this might be a little bit of a hot take here, but I actually prefer the underwater section in 8 over Wii. Simply put, I just find the anti-gravity and the half-pipe more fun than the electric shock things, which were still enjoyable, but I don't know, half-pipe anti-gravity is just more fun to me. In fact, the underwater section is pretty much the main reason that I consider this to be the best version of Koopa Cape, even more than the Wii version, albeit only slightly. Gameplay-wise, yeah, this is my favorite version, but graphically, it is held back quite a bit. So while if this course looked better, it would probably make its way into the X tier, 8 Deluxe Koopa Cape is just going to be going into S tier. Vancouver Velocity is a course that I am conflicted on. I really enjoy it from a gameplay perspective mostly, and visually I think it's pretty nice. It's also kind of neat that it's the only city track to actually utilize anti-gravity. The issue comes with how it's routed. They just do everything exciting with the course in the first lap. Once you reach lap 2, it's just kind of boring. Like, just think about this course for a second. How many major set pieces are there that aren't on lap 1? There's the stadium. I guess there's the park on lap 2. And that's it. Lap 3 doesn't even have anything beyond the stadium for a second time. It's kind of the opposite of Singapore Speedway if you think about it. Singapore lap 1 is boring, but the rest of the course is easily able to make up for it. But here, lap 1 is all we got. And yeah, it's really good, but the rest of the course just kind of makes it feel worse in comparison, because they made the first lap so good. Where did that go for the rest of the course? I really want to like this course more, but as it stands, it starts off really good, and then it just kind of goes downhill a little bit more every lap. So Vancouver Velocity, I feel like the best I can give it is just the higher end of B tier. Alright, home stretch here, guys. Only 2 cups left, starting with Rome Avanti, another really well-made city track. I actually like that Nintendo was like, alright, you know what? Last 2 cities, let's make these both really good. And yeah, Rome is incredibly well designed. I think the Colosseum serves as a very nice set piece for the track, and yet my favorite part of this course is actually lap 2, which doesn't involve the Colosseum at all. I just think it's kind of fun that you start this lap going one way, and then by the end of the lap, you just end up right back where you were, going the opposite direction. As for the Colosseum itself, yeah, I think both times you go through it, it's pretty nice. Lap 1, you go around the top of it. Lap 2, you actually get to go through it. And the chain chomps in there are a bit of a nice addition. I will say, I am just the tiniest bit salty with this course getting to keep its unique enemies that weren't anywhere else in 8 Deluxe yet, being the Rocky Wrenches and the Fuzzies. Yet Bangkok couldn't keep the Inky Piranha Plants, but whatever. That is such a minor thing, it really doesn't do anything against this course. If anything, it just helps it because it still has those unique elements of it. As good as I think Rome Avanti is, because, again, I do really enjoy this track, it is probably the third, maybe fourth best city. I don't think it's quite S tier worthy, so it's just gonna make its way to the higher end of A tier. DK Mountain is another course that I feel like has no real reason to be in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But unlike the other two courses that I feel this way about, at least DK Mountain is a kind of good track. I very much enjoyed this course back in Double Dash, but I feel like here, and to a lesser extent in Wii as well, despite the upgrades it's gotten, it just doesn't feel super necessary because we already have DK Summit.
He does exactly what I do, but better.
This course is also quite a mixed bag from a visual standpoint. As great as the mountain looks, especially the face, I feel like the jungle section of the track just doesn't look too good as an unfortunate product of being in the BCP. I really just think we should have gotten Dino Dino Jungle instead. Not only is it, at least in my opinion, a better course, but it doesn't really share any DNA with courses already in the game, like this does. But you know what? DK Mountain is what we got, and I guess I'm not upset with it, I just would have rather had something else. But at the very least, DK Mountain is still just a B tier course. Daisy Circuit was genuinely one of my most wanted courses for Mario Kart 8, purely because I think this course would have looked absolutely gorgeous in the base 8 art style. And even then, with the BCP art style, it still looks really nice. And all the changes this course got were really nice. Like, the shortcut becoming a glider, that just made perfect sense. Honestly, one of the most obvious glider ramps that they could have added to any retro track, really. I don't necessarily agree as much with it becoming off-road to get up there, but I suppose with how much better the shortcut is now on account of being a glider, it made sense they had to nerf it a little bit. Another course that I don't really have many complaints about either, although I do think it probably would have made more sense for this to be the second track in the Acorn Cup and then DK Mountain be third, but maybe that's just me. I am a little bit annoyed as well that this course's reveal made me scrap an entire video that I was almost done with, but I don't hold it against it. I still very much enjoy this track. It's probably my second or third favorite circuit in the game. Even if it doesn't really feel like a circuit. I feel like they could have renamed this course like, I don't know, Daisy Square or Daisy Plaza or something, and it wouldn't really change much. But yeah, Daisy Circuit in 8 Deluxe is going to find its way also into the B tier. And now we've got Piranha Plant Cove, and along with it, a few surprises. Not that the course itself is in the game, because I'm pretty sure we all knew this was going to happen, but rather the fact that it was in Wave 6 instead of where most people thought it would be in Wave 5. And I think the biggest surprise about this course, at least for me, is the fact that it isn't a section track. Initially I figured, yeah, this is easily going to be a section track. They're not going to really put all of them together into one map, but they actually made it work pretty much just like the city tracks, where you just have the one main starting line and you just take a different route every time. You know what? Good for them. I think regardless, this is going to be a really good course. And Cove didn't slack in the aesthetic department either. I absolutely love the whole mostly sunken ruins we've got going on here, and it lends itself to the gameplay phenomenally. It's also just a really nice vibe. Not too much else really to say about this course. I love the aesthetic, I think it lends itself great to the gameplay. I think the way it was routed was really well done, considering how different the three sections all feel. I think Piranha Plant Cove is easily an S tier course for me. And finally, here we are with the last city track, both in Mario Kart 8 and to release overall, Madrid Drive. And I gotta say, they went out with a bang, because this course is great. Honestly, it's a lot like Singapore to me, in that the only real complaint I have with this course is that it feels like the sections that have their own music are way too short. Like, they're one turn and one straightaway, and that's it. I do also think it's kind of neat how this is the only city course to be routed in a way that all of its variants are in reverse, going 3, then 2, then 1. Just a kind of neat thing, and for how it plays in 8, I think this routing works. It is a little bit unfortunate that one of the wigglers from the plaza was removed, but in its place we can now cut through the tables, which is a difficult but honestly pretty neat shortcut. And they also added what I can only really describe as a long cut at the glide section, where you can take a longer route around the fountain and get a couple extra coins. I'm not sure why it was added, but I guess it's kind of neat. As nice as it would have been, like in my remake, for them to save the best city track for the final one in the BCP, I think it does also make sense for the final city track to be the, well, final city track that released. And even then, I think Madrid is still the second best one. For me, this course, I think, is another pretty easy S tier, although on the lower end. Rosalina's Ice World was the true biggest surprise of Wave 6, because I'm not sure many people were expecting this course, at least not after Daisy Circuit was revealed. I know I scrapped an entire video that ended in me saying we would be getting this course, all because we saw Daisy Circuit. I am still a tiny bit salty about that, but I don't hold it against the course, and you know what? Even though this was definitely my least favorite of the new courses in Mario Kart 7, here in 8, it got some changes that, you know what? I actually kind of care about this course now. The new half-pipes they added towards the beginning feel completely natural, almost like they were always meant to be there, just save the fact that Mario Kart 7 didn't have half-pipes. And the off-road shortcut at the end is also kind of nice, if not just a little inconsequential. I still don't think this course is anything great. However, Mario Kart 8 did change it enough that I think it's at least good now. So Rosalina's Ice World is gonna end up in the lower end of B tier. An actual great SNES course.
No, this can't be. I must be dreaming.
You know, back in Super Mario Kart, yeah, this was the second best course in the game, but that's Super Mario Kart. Here in Mario Kart 8, though, actual verticality on a SNES track and an anti-grav section? Oh, I never thought we would get anything like this. At least until I saw how this course played in Tour, at which point, yeah, it was obvious that it was going to be anti-gravity here, but still, actually playing it, this one remake gives me so much hope for the future of any retro SNES track in the series going forward. And it even looks great, too. Like, Mario Circuit 3, again, easily the worst looking course in this game. The other BCP SNES track, though, I would go so far as to say, alongside Waluigi Stadium, these two are the only BCP tracks that I think actually could pass for base game visually. God, they just did everything so right with this course. The new version of the music, amazing. Visuals, I already talked about, phenomenal. The gameplay, this was one of the few Super Mario Kart tracks that actually did something that felt really unique, and they just turned it up to 11. I'm gonna say it. SNES Bowser Castle 3 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is an easy X-tier course, and the first time in the series since Super Mario Kart itself that I would consider any SNES track to be in the top 15 in a game. And here we are, the final course in the game. And yeah, I think Wii Rainbow Road was a perfect pick. I would have preferred if we ended with the best Rainbow Road, but again, second best, I will take it because there's not that big of a gap between them. And speaking of which, we already know this course's peak. Let's just throw it up there before I say anything else. Wii Rainbow Road, already one of the best courses in the series. And Mario Kart 8 is just like, you know what? I think we can make this a little bit better. Entire course anti-gravity just kind of makes sense. Visually, I love it. I love how each Rainbow Road in this game, because there's 5 of them, all of them look completely unique. It's not just, oh yeah, we just have one Rainbow Road texture we're going to apply to all 5 courses. No. Each Rainbow Road has its own unique texture, and that's how it should be. And they didn't slack off gameplay-wise either. The section with the loops in the middle, I love that in 200cc, you don't even need a mushroom to go over those. You can just do it. And there's also a new little gap cut at the end of that section as well, which, sure, why not? Just make it even more fun. And the music, too. God, it's just perfect. I nearly shed a tear from the music alone during the Wave 6 reveal, because what else can I say other than it's peak? Just what a perfect ending for this game that we've been playing for 10 years now. And that is the final course today that we have to rank. Now, I did mention in the intro that there would be a couple of extra things at the end, so now we can get into those, starting with battle courses. So as we move into the battle courses, things are going to be a little bit different. This isn't exactly going to be a full-on ranking of them per se, as I think it would be kind of unfair to rank them all based on a single battle mode, because there are some courses that are better in some modes than others, and I also don't feel like making a ranking for each battle mode, so instead, I'm just going to talk about the courses as individuals. I also do want to add, I don't play as much battle mode as I do races, but I'm still familiar enough with these courses. Starting things off with Battle Stadium, this course is just kind of okay. My issue with it is that it feels way too big, even for a battle course. There's some times where I feel like you just don't see anyone for like 10 seconds straight, which in battle mode really shouldn't be happening. I will say though, while I do consider its massive size a bit of a detriment in some modes, I think in Coin Runners and Renegade Roundup, it works really well. Next up, Sweet Sweet Kingdom, which I think is kind of the opposite of Battle Stadium, as this one feels really cramped, but also in a good way. I think its much smaller size really helps it be a standout map for modes like Bob-omb Blast or just regular Balloon Battle. I also gotta say, I really like the aesthetic here, but who would have guessed? I like the course that it's based on a lot, so yeah, I'm gonna like the battle course as well. Dragon Palace, meanwhile, I don't know. I think it's just kind of whatever. It's definitely an interesting map to play on, and I do like the whole breakable walls that it's got going on, which is a pretty unique asset for this course, but I don't know. I feel like there's not really any mode where it's a standout pick. Honestly, I think it's a lot like the original course that it's based on, where it's not really anything bad, but it's not really anything special either. A course that is really special, though, is Lunar Colony. Because that one, I feel like, is just so perfectly done. The new gimmick is anti-gravity. You've gotta have a battle course set in space, and yeah, I think Lunar Colony pulls it off really well. I think it's fun to play on in all 5 of the battle modes, although if I had to pick, it's at its best in Shine Thief and Balloon Battle. And I think it's really neat how they took the admittedly less popular space station aesthetic of Wii U Rainbow Road and turned it into a really fun battle course. It's also kind of neat that the entire thing is anti-gravity. Now, of course, you know they had to bring back the best Mario Kart 7 battle map right away, and honestly, I think Woohoo Town is still the best battle map in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It is a little bit of a shame that they changed it to be daytime now instead of nighttime, but I think it getting new music entirely, not just a new version of the old song, is a bit of an equalizer for that. And the fact that its new music is based on the theme for Maka Woohoo and Woohoo Loop, yeah, that just makes sense, really. And another incredibly well-done retro battle track is GameCube Luigi's Mansion. Another example also of really nice new music being given to a retro battle track. I think it was a little bit strange that the original shared music with Bowser's Castle, but this new remix of DS Luigi Mansion theme is really good. I also just love how complex this map is. Like, easily the most complex battle map in this game, maybe even in the series. All the different levels just really let you know, like, yeah, stuff's coming from everywhere on this map, even above, and I think that's pretty neat. Although, I will say, it is a little bit unfortunate that this battle map is the only course Luigi has in this game. Like, 96 courses, not a single one of them Luigi. This is all he gets. And then from complexity to simplicity, we have SNES Battle Course 1, which, I'm not gonna lie, this one is just kind of alright. I get that it's, you know, it's a basic SNES one, and this is before Bowser Castle 3, when SNES courses actually started getting fair treatment, but I don't know, it's just kind of whatever. It is neat, though, I will say, that this is the only battle map in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that actually has a glide ramp. I will say, though, while in most modes Battle Course 1 is just kind of okay, it is, in my opinion, the best map for Renegade Roundup, hands down. Also, while the music is good, as someone who plays a pretty good amount of Tour, I'm kind of sick of it, because every battle map in Tour uses this music. And for our final battle course, we also have our final crossover, that being Urchin Underpass from Splatoon, which, honestly, I think if they were going to bring in a Splatoon course as a crossover, it made so much sense to make it a battle track. And of course, because it's a crossover, they went all out on this. Unique music, unique item sounds. Heck, it's one of the rare courses in this game where on the final lap, or in battle mode's case, final minute, it has fully unique music instead of just speeding up the already playing one. And of course, as you expect, it plays fantastically in every battle mode, although I think it's easily at its best in Balloon Battle. I also just think that it's pretty funny how this course was only playable in the Splatoon series in Splatoon 1, meaning Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the only game that it's playable in on the Switch, and now, because of the shutdown of the Wii U servers, it's the only place you can play this map at all! And there we have it. All 96 courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe ranked, as well as mentioning all 8 of the battle courses just for good measure. Now here we have the final tier list, not yet ordered, we'll get to that in a second, but before we do that, there are 2 other tier lists that I want to show off. First up, we have a much smaller tier list, just of every cup in the game, mainly just made by averaging the placements of the courses within them. And we also have the music tier list that I mentioned earlier, but that's all the context you guys are getting for these, because this video is long enough, and I really don't feel like explaining 2 more entire tier lists. And now, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. My final, in order, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe full course tier list. Now, I think I've explained my reasonings for all these placements pretty well over the past 2.5 hours, but if there's anything you're still confused on, or heck, anything you disagree with, feel free to leave a comment, and there's a pretty good chance that I will respond to it. I also just want to take a little bit of time here at the end to explain why this video took so long, because at this point, we've already seen footage of Mario Kart 9. That is not what I intended when this video first started being worked on. Heck, I initially planned for this to release on the 10-year anniversary of Mario Kart 8's release, but well, it's been 10 months since then, and yeah. Long story short, I ended up restarting progress on this video multiple times because I didn't like the direction it was going in. Halfway through last year, I ended up having to just get an entire new computer because I was having issues with my old one. And in general, things have just been crazy, but finally, this video is complete. And with the end of this video, this is also going to be the end of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe discussion over here on the channel. It may still come up every now and then, but at least in terms of videos where it's the focus, this is the last one. I really enjoy this game, and it has helped me really find a love for making these more scripted style videos, but all good things must come to an end eventually, and I'm also just kind of out of things to say about this game. Although Mario Kart content itself is not gone. We're definitely going to be covering Mario Kart 9 when we get more info on it, and who knows, maybe I'll even put something out before we get more info on it. And even beyond that, I have a bunch of other stuff planned, including Pokemon mainly, but I may have some other surprises in store too. We'll just have to wait and see. I just want to apologize one more time for the complete lack of anything over here on YouTube for the past year, but I've just been so busy. If you're looking for a little bit more consistency, I do try to stream at least once a week on my Twitch, which the link for that will be in the description below, as will the link for my Discord, because that is the best way to keep up to date with anything that I've got going on. And once again, thank you all for sticking with me through this massive ride of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It has been an absolute blast, and here's to seeing what's going to be coming in the future. But in order to get to that, I will have to see you guys next time.